What's up, guys? We are sitting here. We're about to sit down and talk about Arrow Season 2, Episode 3, Broken Dolls.
Yep.
And this episode is probably my favorite of the season so far. I mean, I know we're only 3 episodes in or whatever, but it's definitely by far the best of what I think we've seen so far.
For sure. I mean, just even from just a cinematography standpoint, this episode was beautiful.
Oh, dude, the everything, the action, every single action sequence was great. There
chase scenes.
Dude, there's 2 chase scenes.
Yeah.
There was the one where we're going through the warehouse. By the way, full spoilers ahead, so, if you haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode.
Yes.
What are you waiting for?
Why haven't you watched it?
Anyway, so for sure, there was the scene where they're going into the warehouse after the Dollmaker, which is a new villain or was introduced this episode.
Right.
And basically...
And subsequently killed.
Yeah, and subsequently just, destroyed by the Canary.
No more Dollmaker.
No more Dollmaker. Which was, you were kind of disappointed by that. I'm sitting here going, man, this guy was a creepy guy. I hope they get him.
I mean, okay, from a law-abiding person standpoint, you're like, yes, you want these people off the street. But he was really interesting as a bad guy, and I feel like he could have been a villain that they carried on for maybe a half a season as a recurring kind of oh man, you can't find him kind of thing. You just hunting him down,
definitely
finding him. And I would have liked to have seen that because he was creepy and he was interesting, and I wanted to see more.
One of the reasons, I loved this episode, going back to the scene where we're going into the warehouse after the Dollmaker, the speed that they portrayed there, the frame rate they got to a lower frame rate camera, that sort of thing. Yeah. So the speed with which you perceived the speed that they were running.
Right.
Which makes me really excited for kind of the Flash and to see kind of the great speed with which, that will be delivered.
Yeah, you compare it to, the effects on Smallville when they would have Clark run really fast. That was really corny and really cheesy.
Yeah.
But this was awesome.
Yeah, this was a great chase scene. In fact, in my mind, there's an element of it's very much similar, was laid out to me, was similar to the last movie in the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah.
Where it was Deathly Hallows Part 1, there was this big fight scene, and it automatically just everything looked different, and it felt crazy, and you were on the edge of your seat the whole time. That's very much how I felt like this was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the Dollmaker. This is a villain that was originally in the Batman series of comics.
Right.
It was Tony Daniel was the one who did the most recent iteration of him.
Who was his lawyer?
Yeah, who's actually
in the show.
In the show, he was the lawyer.
I don't know if it was him. Was it him or is just his name?
It was just his name. They were kind of throwing out a homage to Tony Daniel, which I really enjoyed because they only mentioned it. They didn't know who it was. They didn't know who his lawyer was.
Right.
And then whenever they walk in the door, you see it on the door, and you're like, really? And then he says it right after that. He says Tony Daniel. And so anyway, it made me smile, and I nodded, and I made sure I looked up and was like, I did do that on purpose, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's really cool.
Anyway, so we have the Toy Maker. Not the Toy Maker, the Dollmaker. Sorry.
Dollmaker.
The Toy Maker's a completely different villain in the DC universe. So, but the Dollmaker, and a super creepy guy, and this was actually a Batman villain from the comics.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the main reasons. I think we did a lot of things that were very Batman-esque in this episode.
Yeah, they were.
It was very much a detective-based story.
Yeah, it almost felt like an episode of CSI, which I liked. It was kind of like, okay, here's the setup, here's the murder, let's go investigate.
Yeah, let's go interrogate guys.
Right.
We're gonna go find this person.
And I like that. I like that aspect of superheroes.
Oh yeah.
That's something I love about Batman is just his investigative powers.
Absolutely. And so we also had the team up between Detective Lance and the Arrow,
which I also loved.
It was so good. The dynamic there was really good.
Oh yeah, and I love the fact that Detective Lance, he's really kind of uneasy about the whole situation. He doesn't like the fact that he's having to team up with him, but he will anyway to get the end result.
Right. I mean, he goes from saying something well, maybe I'm trying some new things as well.
Right.
He says, I know you're trying a new way.
Right.
Felicity says you're trying a new way. I'm trying a new way as well. And he goes from that to right at the end, he literally yells at Oliver. He says, do whatever it takes to get him. You know, he's like, and it's like that just change in Detective Lance's kind of mindset from even the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode.
Right.
I mean, he's hanging out with Arrow in Laurel's house, you know, and so it's like they're buddies now.
Well, that's the thing, you know, like Laurel used to be the one who was teaming up with him.
Yeah.
And now it's Detective Lance.
Right.
And so the roles have kind of swapped. But I like that dynamic because, you know, Laurel is kind of up on her high horse. She's like, I'm above this. I'm going to take this vigilante down.
I'm gonna take him down.
And he's just kind of like, well, you know what? Whatever gets the job done.
Yeah.
And he even tells her that.
Yeah.
And so like I love that. I like him teaming up with Oliver more than I like Laurel teaming up with Oliver.
Well, also because like their dynamic, even whenever they were kind of chatting and going back and forth, where he knocks the guy out and he says, oh, so this is what we're doing. We're breaking and entering now.
Right.
And he says, you know, he'll wake up in you know however many hours, and he says, yeah, I remember.
Right. And you know, I like, you know, whenever he shoots Tony Daniel.
Yeah.
He's just like, we're killing people now. Seriously. And he's like, no, it's okay. He'll live. He still has another shoulder.
And then he's like, but he'll report me. And he's like, no, he won't. It's because he has another shoulder. Then you know, threatening to shoot him again.
Right.
So it's
although I didn't really understand, like, how did Detective Lance get arrested? What did he get arrested for?
Obstruction of justice.
For what?
For investigating this thing and putting, you know, basically, it would be obstruction of justice. Like if you were going off and investigating something without the police on your own, it would be a. I feel
like it was really contrived.
Honestly, here's the thing. It's like he was beaten shut out from the very beginning. This was a murder that had happened on his, like in his area.
Right.
Which was intentionally so because the Dollmaker probably was going after him.
Right.
And he knew where his beat was.
Right.
So he was, they told him, hey, you know, don't even worry about coming. And so whenever he finally shows up, they're like, no, go home. Don't worry about this.
Right.
Because they're kind of just excommunicating him altogether. Not just because this is his case, but because they don't like him right now.
No, they don't like him at all.
With the Arrow.
Well, they don't like him because of that, and they don't like him because of the events last season. I also feel like there was obviously some history there, you know, with him working that case before. And he said something to Laurel offhandedly, you know, like, or no, Laurel says to him, you know, this took you to a dark place last time.
Right.
And I feel like probably the entire police force knows that it took him to a dark place last time.
Well, and then his reply was that it wasn't that took him to a dark place because it happened a few weeks after his daughter died on the boat with Oliver.
Right. But to everyone else besides him, they would probably attribute it to this case taking him to that dark place.
Correct. All right. So kind of going to a different character.
Yeah.
Moira had her court scene.
Yep, they're going for the death penalty.
Yes, they're going for the death penalty. She, like, before that, in the scene before that, she literally was saying, actually, I'm resigned to 25 years to life, you know, and you're going to have to start expecting this. She's like, I don't expect to get off. But then the big monkey wrench here was, we went from, you know, being accepting this thing to you could possibly get the death penalty. And, you know, that I think kind of shook her. If there was anything that could shake her, that was it.
Right. You know, and I wasn't really too happy with the way, like, she was just being flippant about it before. Yeah. You know, like whenever she's talking to Thea, she was just like, you know, you're gonna have to get used to the fact that I'm in here. It's like, no
child would ever get used to their parent, you know.
No, and that's a stupid request. You know, like, just don't be so nonchalant and flippant about it. And let's take this thing seriously like it is. Right. And if you're going to fight it, fight it. Don't half-heartedly fight it.
Right. And so then apparently there's more that she has to hide, though.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the episode, she was worried that everything was going to come out into the open with the trial.
Right.
And she said there are some things that must never be spoken of. So there's obviously some things to hide.
But here's the thing. Do we care?
I do, because I wonder what this has to do with anything else. I mean, if she was more in bed with Malcolm Merlin and the League of Shadows than we know, I mean, I want to know this.
Right, League of Shadows, like if it relates to that, that'd be cool. But like, you know, I guess that would be an interesting plot device that they could use to bring it in. If it's anything beyond that, it's like we're just getting more dirt on how awful the Queen family was. I have no desire for that. Like,
that's true.
It's just kind of like, let's just let's just leave that. That was season 1 stuff. Like
Yeah.
that was tier 1. Like we're at tier 2. Let's deal with tier 2.
I
agree
can't
even say that right. Tier 2.
I agree with you. That if it's just kind of more of a like, oh, I was corrupt, that sort of thing. Well,
exactly.
That's no big deal anymore because
Right.
we've had corrupt people from corrupt people blew up half of a city.
Right.
So I mean the thing is I think it probably relates more to something that would shock not only on the level of like you're even more corrupt than this and you helped murder 503 people.
Right.
It's more like this is going to be even worse than that. Like I am still in bed with these people, and I did.
I mean, if
things
it's
to
something
help
like that, and I could see that. I don't. It just kind of depends on how they're going to use it. I
Right.
could see it coming back as like another like season ender or something like that. I kind of hope that they stay away from that. Like I'm okay with leaving. Like they were a dirty bunch of people. Like
Right.
they did bad things.
Right.
Let's leave that in the past. Let's deal with new threats.
I agree, and I like the idea of Moira becoming more of a. She's honestly a better parent in prison than she was out of prison.
Yeah, I mean, well, because she's not lying to everybody,
right? And she sort of is
but-
now. But anyway, I mean, it was just the relationship between her and Oliver, where she gave him business advice,
Right.
And then the relationship that she's now having with
but
with
you
Thea.
think about that though.
know,
They're both more accepting of her leadership now than they were in season 1.
that's true. That's true.
He didn't want anything to do with the company.
That's true.
She didn't want any parental oversight.
Right, that's
And
true.
Now that they don't have the option of that, they kind of both want it. It's kind of like you want what you don't have.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of their response to
And
it.
that's a theme that has appeared in Arrow before as well, with Laurel and with these things that Oliver always wants what he doesn't have, and Thea wanted her brother back, and
Right.
they always have these unfulfilled things that they want
Right.
out of life. Another thing relating to Thea, Roy, her boyfriend.
Yeah, who I'm actually starting to like a lot
Yeah,
more.
okay. So he entered his new role as the Arrow's helper,
The informant.
the informant, and the ear to the ground in the is it the Narrows? Is that right?
Not the Narrows. That's Batman.
That's Batman. I'm sorry.
See, now I can't even remember.
Yeah, okay.
The Glades.
The Glades, that's the one.
Gosh.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm losing my mind here. So anyway, there was a nice chase scene with him as well, and a new character named Sin. And that's going to be an interesting thing to see that play out because she seems like she's like the entry level to the Canary. She's like
she's
a
just the
Confederate.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, she's a Confederate to the Canary. So he runs out there and
buddies.
yeah, they're buddies. They're buddies.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, he's chased after her and he goes and finds and helps Oliver out quite a bit because the Canary goes and saves everybody's butts.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of the Canary, what did you think of the Canary this week?
I thought she was cool. Like, she's still kind of shrouded in mystery. You don't know, like, how does she know where she's going?
Yeah.
Where does she get her information? How does she know
Yeah.
where Oliver is?
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of like she just appears. It's
Yeah.
like, this is kind of weird. But I do like, like I said, I like the idea of another superhero entity in the city. And like I said, I think they're going to be at odds for a while. Like, he accepts her, but he wants to know more about her. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I think she's cool. Like, I like her a lot.
And something that was interesting to me is that we were talking last week at the end of the episode, and you were like, he's going to be out in 5 minutes. I think he was out less than 5
Yes.
minutes. But it wasn't how I expected him to get. I expected him to get out somehow with like Diggle or somebody like that. But it was the Canary that came in.
But
and
you were
just,
right. It was someone else.
Right.
It was a third party comes busting in.
You're right. But I mean, it was just kind of one of those things that like.
And I guess she has a scream in the comic.
Yes.
And so like that's
She's
what
a superpower.
that's what her little supersonic like device was.
Yep.
And so we still technically have not seen superpowers on Arrow yet.
That's true, and in fact, I think there's some nice stuff they did with the soundtrack this week. Where whenever Canary was on, whenever Canary was on, it would have these high pitched like kind of sine wave type things going, and that was a really nice touch because of her superpower from the comics, and because of the supersonic thing.
What did you think of the flashback sequences?
Okay, so this week, this is what I think is happening right now with the flashback. I mean, first of all, Slade is kind of annoying because you don't know if he's being jealous or like if he's
he's being jealous.
I mean,
He
he's
was
just
being
being a
jealous
total
last
tool,
week.
man.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, I like Slade a lot, but this week we have this whole situation where nothing really happened.
Right.
But that was okay with me because again, it's balanced by the real world, and the story that was going on and the intensity that was going on in the real world.
Right.
And in fact, like to me, what happened on the island, I feel like is going to set up next week or the week after.
Right.
And so we're essentially in this kind of in between area where we're trying to set things up on the island.
Yeah.
And now we're not even on the island. At the end of the boat, at the end of the episode, he was on a boat.
Right.
I'm on a boat. He's on a boat down in the
with T-Pain.
With T-Pain.
And
T-Pain
Andy
walks
Samberg.
in, and Andy Sandberg walks in.
Right.
You know, and his flippy floppies and things.
Yes.
So
My swim trunks.
okay, so he's on a boat now. He's on the boat. In fact, okay, so here's an Easter egg for you guys. As the camera panned out, the name of the boat. Did you catch the name of the boat?
I didn't.
Okay, the name of the boat is the Amazo, which is a character from DC Comics who steals other superheroes' powers.
Nice.
And so I don't know if this is going to be a kind of if that's like a hint at something, or if that's just an Easter egg there for DC Comics fans to figure out.
That's cool.
But yeah, so that was definitely something I caught right at the end of the episode. I was like, wait a second, I got to go back. So I went back online. And I was like, yeah, that's it. It's Amazo.
That's funny. I like that. That's really cool.
Or it's just slipping in little Easter eggs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the last thing though isn't really an Easter egg more than it is like a plot point that we're going to see, kind of develop. And it was a big reveal. I think Stephen Emily actually tweeted and it was like, yes, you heard the name that you heard. You heard that right. And everybody on the West Coast was like, don't tell us, don't spoil it for us. We haven't watched it yet. So anyway, but yeah, for sure. The thing was Raz Al Ghul or Ra Al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul, however you say it, is in the universe here.
Right, which is awesome.
Which is great.
We kind of knew that from last season because
League of Shadows showed up.
Yeah, League of Shadows showed up, and Merlin was in the League of Shadows.
Right. I mean, that's kind of where he said he like got his training, that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
which apparently so is Black Canary.
Yeah, apparently like that I mean, they showed up and said to her, Raz Al Ghul has ordered your return, and it's like, really? Okay.
Right. Which, like she's either decided she doesn't want to be part of what they're doing anymore,
right,
or she just has her own nefarious plans.
Right, where she's trying to kind of, do her own thing in the city,
right,
and maybe or may or may not tie into what the League of Shadows wants,
right.
But I mean, it's this big ominous thing too.
Yeah.
So that's basically that. Do you have any expectations for next episode? Like, this is just kind of like, what are you looking forward to next week?
Yeah, I hope that they continue with this more action based storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't talk about it, but like most of this episode was spent with Oliver as Arrow rather than Oliver as Oliver Queen.
Yeah, I can only literally think of two scenes that he was Oliver as Oliver Queen.
And it moves. It moves the plot forward a lot faster. It moves, makes sure there's a lot of action. I actually think it helps us focus not only on Arrow, but it helps us focus on the ancillary characters more as well.
That's true.
Like Detective Lance and Diggle, like whenever he helps him out,
even Laurel, like I liked her more this episode because she wasn't like all about Oliver and her interactions with him.
Right.
She they connected on other levels.
Yeah.
So we saw her in a different light.
I like that a lot. Not every episode can be like that. Obviously, you need to strike a good balance. But I love episodes like this.
Right. My expectations for next episode, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing more of the Canary.
Yeah.
I really want to know what she's about. I really like.
backstory.
Okay, so whenever I first saw her, I didn't really know what to think, and I think I said that on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I said I don't know what to think of this yet. I don't know if I like her.
Right.
I like her.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come out and just say she's one of my favorite new characters.
Yeah, mine too.
And so I want to see more of her. I think next week we're going to deal with this blood guy a little bit more and see what he's more about. Which
will be cool because we didn't really even reference him at all this week. I mean, we didn't really have any movement on that plot.
No, and that's okay with me because again, this was a very much an action-based episode, almost a Halloween-based episode because, it is the month of October here.
Right.
Had a lot of horror and terrifying things in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely want to see a little bit more of that. I definitely think we're going to see a little bit more of Summer Glau's character.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I get her name right because we've only seen her in the one episode here.
Yeah, the first season 2 opener.
Yes, Isabel Rochef. I think we're going to see a little bit more of her, and I hope we're going to see a little bit more from her next episode. I'm hoping that a lot of those type of plot points, the kind of the political side of Oliver, kind of comes out.
Yeah.
I don't want that to necessarily usurp the Arrow side of things, though.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to go through, another episode where you see Arrow at the very end and that's it.
Right.
I do hope that they keep moving in this direction that they're moving with I wouldn't say more mature storylines because they've always had, pretty mature storylines. The villains have always been pretty violent, like they haven't held back at all, like they kill people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I like just the sinister nature of this villain.
Yeah.
Like he's creepy and, really, 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 really creepy and just scares you. Like it's obviously because he's a Batman villain. Like,
right.
That's what Batman villains do.
Yep.
But I love seeing that, especially on television.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really honestly why I wanted, like him to stick around. But like if they can keep that going with other villains, that'd be great.
I mean, okay, so DC has a large catalog of villains that we could just insert into the Arrow universe,
right.
and then all of them will be creepy, all of them will be scary,
right.
and so it's just kind of one of those things that I feel like killing him wasn't as big a deal, but it was nice for the Canary character to see, okay, she's not scared to kill
right.
somebody.
This is what she's about.
Right, she's not scared to do this. Yeah. She's okay with all of those things.
Yeah,
so,
it just juxtaposes her against Oliver in that fact.
For sure. And it's a really good moment. I feel like whenever he says, "You're going back to prison," and she's like, "No, he's not."
Yeah.
No, he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the only other thing left is I'm going to run through some of my favorite quotes from the episode.
Awesome.
One of my favorite ones whenever they were interrogating the lawyer at the end, whenever
Tony Daniel.
they were interrogating Tony Daniel, and after Oliver walks off and they get the information he needs, Oliver walks off. Lance looks at him and goes, "I'm sorry, I guess he gets a little enthusiastic sometimes."
Yeah.
And this dude's laying there bleeding on his desk with an arrow through his shoulder.
Right.
And then there's the Felicity one where she goes undercover, and
oh man, that was a creepy part.
That was a really creepy part.
I was like, holy cow,
yeah,
she's going to get hurt.
And you think, man, if anything happens to her,
I know. I know.
Anyway, but she says, "Hey, you're going to reimburse me for these, right?" I kept the receipts, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, she definitely had a good line there. The lawyer, whenever we're talking about Moira, he says, your client aided and abetted an act of mass murder. 503 conversations wouldn't convince me that Moira Queen shouldn't be the 504th fatality. That was a great turn of phrase there.
Yeah.
And then Detective Lance, the last one that I really stuck with me was, "I may not always agree with your methods, but I can't argue with your results."
Yep.
And so that kind of solidifies his story arc for the episode.
For the whole episode, yeah. And that kind of, I mean, that was basically like, I feel like that's where we're going,
Oh yeah.
That's the way that Oliver will become a hero. Is that maybe it's not always clean, but you get the job done.
Yeah, you may have shot a lawyer in the shoulder with an arrow, but right. Hey, you got the job done, and we wouldn't have gotten it done otherwise. Right. So definitely, I want to see more of him for sure. I love him as an actor, and I love the portrayal that he has of that character.
Right on. Well, check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/StayOnTargetPodcast, on Twitter @StayOnTargetPod, and always online at StayOnTargetPodcast.com. This week on the podcast, where we've got some hands-on impressions of the Xbox One. We'll have a video up on YouTube as well.
Yeah, make sure you check out that video. We went over there and shot some really cool footage.
At the Xbox One truck tour. I'll embed it in this article on StayOnTargetPodcast.com. You can find us on YouTube, our channel, our user channel. It's youtube.com/user/StayOnTargetPodcast.
The only other thing that I would have is say make sure you check out Arrow on CW Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time, and I always live tweet the thing from either my Twitter or from the Stay on Target Twitter. So
what's yours?
John Wright 777.
Cool, and mine's Chris Wright 250. So we'll see you next time on Arrow on Target.